Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel where we talk about interior design tips and inspiration. Today's video is a follow-up from last week where we're going to talk about how you can combine different interior design styles together to make a unique style for yourself. How to bring those together cohesively so you can have a space that still feels a little bit like your two styles that you're really loving, but it's not necessarily a headache. It's not like too overwhelming that you have two different styles. So we're going to talk about how you can kind of make this more approachable. Now, if you're curious about how you can create a design style from scratch, I'll link the video above from last week so you can get that information as well. The first step is to identify which two interior design styles that you really love. Now, I would suggest only two interior design styles. If you throw in a third, that does complicate it a little bit more. If you are feeling like taking on a challenge, then maybe throw in that third, but I think having two distinct interior design styles is a good place to start. Now, there's two different routes that you can take this. You can pick two design styles that are very different from each other and have a lot of contrast, or you can pick two design styles that have some similarities that overlap nicely. When you have two design styles that are a little bit more similar, it's going to be a little bit more natural on how to combine those two into making one style. So this would be like if they have similar color palettes, similar furniture styles, things like that, similar patterns, then those are going to be easier to combine. So my first tip is to create a solid color palette. I had mentioned this in my last video, but as long as you have a really solid color palette, you can get away with a lot more. You can do things that are going to pop a little bit more in style or in pattern, but as long as you have a good, pretty solid color palette, a mixture of maybe, 5 colors or so, it's going to feel a lot more cohesive if you can stay true to that color palette. This is just going to give a really nice background for anything where you're going to have a lot of contrast. A little design psychology background about this. Color is the first thing that our minds grasp onto. Let's say you really dislike a bright purple color. If you see your dream sofa but in a bright purple color, more often than not, you're going to be turned off by that sofa because it's hard to visualize something in a different color. We get really emotionally attached to color really quickly. So as long as we can have that solid base of a color palette and refer back to that with everything and stay consistent, then it's going to be a lot easier to mix all these things together and make it look like they're supposed to be there, make it look good and cohesive. When you're decorating and putting things together, I would definitely suggest, instead of taking a maximalist approach, to take a minimalist approach. So if it feels like there's too many things together, especially when there's contradicting styles, then it can feel very overwhelming. So it's really helpful for the eye to have little resting points in between objects and vignettes, and to let the eye have a natural break and resting point. That way it's not going to seem overcluttered or overstyled, especially when you have elements, when you have a lot of juxtaposition and a lot of things that may seem like they're clashing. If you can give it some breathing room, then it's going to seem a lot more approachable and a lot more intentional. And it's overall just going to bring down the complexity that your eye is trying to understand and to digest. And in the same realm of that, don't segregate things into styles. Make sure that everything kind of sprinkles in together and is very integrated. Distribute things equally. That way it feels like things are supposed to be there rather than there's a group over here that's mid-century modern and a group over here that's really contemporary. It divides the room. It doesn't really give it that nice flow that we want. Another tip is if you are trying to incorporate a piece that's getting passed down to you, or a very special piece that you're not totally sure is completely in either realm and is kind of almost like the oddball, it's very natural for us to try to hide things that maybe were mistakes or don't fit completely or maybe don't match super well. But if we can make those things look intentional, then it's going to look a lot better and we're not going to think that it looks like a mistake or it doesn't match. Let's say that you inherit a piece like an armoire or you found it at the thrift store, something that's very unique and it has a lot of character, but it doesn't maybe necessarily go with everything that you have. Go ahead and make that the focal point and try to pull out different elements that correlate with that piece around it so it looks intentional. And if you make it the focal point, then it's going to be more dramatic. It's going to scream for the attention rather than kind of trying to hide it away and make it feel like it's not really wanted in the space. And then my very last tip is to make sure that the visual weight is equal around the room. This kind of goes with an earlier tip that I mentioned, but if you have one piece of furniture that is from a certain style that's very visually heavy, it's a really big, large chair that is a really dark color and it looks just heavy and it has a lot of visual weight to it, and then you pair it with something that's smaller in scale and has really skinny legs and is kind of like mid-century modern, and it just kind of feels lighter, the visual weight in that room is going to be really disproportionate. So it's going to feel like you just threw these things together and it's not going to feel as intentional, and it's going to feel really off balance. So if you do find yourself where you have multiple pieces that aren't similar in scale, try to do something to make it feel like the smaller scale thing is a little bit heavier to balance it out. So putting something by it that is a little bit more dense or darker in color. That way the furniture pieces don't necessarily have this similar scale. When you look at the room as a whole, then the scale feels a little bit more balanced, and that way it will make it feel a little bit more appropriate for the space. If you want any references on interior design styles that have successfully been really great at mixing together, I will link some videos above that I've done on Japandi and Grand Millennial. Both of those styles came from two separate styles by meshing together and do a really great job and are really trending right now. In case you want to steal those design style duos or just want some inspiration for yourself, and I kind of break down why they work well together if you want more information on that. Next week we'll be starting the series all about 20 different design styles, so I can assist you in figuring out what styles you like, what elements of different styles may be attractive for you, and help you just kind of figure out if there's a design style that you enjoy. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next week. Bye.